Hi, this is Jenny Kassan. I'm here to lay down the law about all the rules and regulations and tips and tricks you need to know about to raise money for your business on your own terms. Last week, I shared some tips when you're raising money, some things to just keep in mind as you're out there raising money, some tips that have worked for me when I've been raising money. And I this time I want to talk a little bit about the legal aspect. I am a lawyer. I don't always talk about the legal part because there's so much to raising money, and the legal part is just one part. But I think it is important to be aware of the legal piece of raising money. When you're out there raising money, it is a very highly regulated activity, and you want to be sure that you're doing it right. So, a lot of people ask me, is it necessary to have a lawyer on board before I raise money? And I want to say the answer is yes. And I'm going to tell you why. So, number one, when you're raising money out of some kind of an entity. You can raise money. Now, that's not necessarily the case because it is possible to raise money if you have a sole proprietorship, which means you don't have an entity. But most people, when they're raising money, they're going to set up some kind of an entity, or you already have it set up, hopefully a corporation, a limited liability company, a nonprofit organization, a cooperative. And all of those entities, it's totally fine to raise money from investors out of those different kinds of entities. But one thing you really need to do before you raise money is make sure that your entity was set up correctly. I have so many clients that work with me and are getting ready to raise money, and I look at their documents when from when they set up their entity, and unfortunately there's lots and lots of things that need to be corrected. And you really want to make sure all of that is super clean before you reach out to investors, because an investor that is sophisticated or that has a lawyer on their team, they're going to want to see your legal documents, and it looks really bad if those were not set up correctly. And you can run into some potential liability if you don't disclose the fact that your business, that your entity was not set up correctly. So you want to have everything really clean from a legal perspective before you start raising money. And that doesn't necessarily just include your legal entity setup. It could also mean having a lawyer review your intellectual property ownership, making sure that's all clean, your relationship with your employees, if any, and or your independent contractors, to make sure that's all clean. So that's one really good reason to have a lawyer on your team. The second really important reason to have a lawyer on your team when you're raising money is that your relationship with your investors is governed by some type of legal agreement. And there's all different kinds of legal agreements. It could be something that's contained in your certificate of incorporation that describes the rights of your investors. It could be a separate document like a convertible note or a safe. It could be some kind of revenue-based note. And when you're deciding how you want to raise money, you want to make sure and set up that relationship with your investors, which is documented in some kind of a legal document, in a way that really, really fits your vision, your goals, your values, your mission. You do not want to use an off-the-shelf document. So there are some people out there advising startups that tell you to use an off-the-shelf document. I think it's a huge mistake, because if you don't totally understand all the different options of the type of relationship you can have with investors, how it fits with your future plans and goals and projections, you're really setting yourself up for a potential mismatch between what your investors are expecting and what you're wanting to do. So you want to work with someone that really understands all the different ways that an investment can be set up, walk you through those options, help you choose the best option for you, and then create the legal document that is going to govern your relationship with your investors for maybe, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, we don't even know. So you want that to be a really good document drafted by a lawyer who really, really knows what they're doing. who has seen good and bad things happen. So they know kind of what to put into the document to address different things that could come up over the years with your relationship with investors. Actually, and another piece of that is you want it drafted in a way that's going to be attractive to investors. So you want to work with a lawyer who knows what terms are best to put into those documents so that it's fair to investors. Obviously, you don't want to put the investor ahead of all other stakeholders. You want to make sure it's fair to the founders, the employees, your mission, etc. But you also want to make sure that the investors are treated fairly. And if you don't have a lawyer that understands how to do that, you might show your investment document to a potential investor and they might be turned off by it. So that's reason number 2, having someone knowledgeable to draft the agreements that you're going to have between your company and your investors. And then number 3 is that there are lots of regulations on the activity of raising money from investors. We call it securities law. So there are state and federal securities laws that you have to take into account before you talk to a single investor. You cannot start talking to potential investors and telling them, hey, I'm raising money. What do you think? Are you interested? Until you first are very, very clear on what is your legal compliance strategy? What are the requirements for that strategy? What am I allowed to do under that strategy? So you want to work with someone that understands all of the different options. Sometimes when you pick an option, it forecloses other options, and you might have to wait a certain period of time before you can switch to a different option. So you want to make sure and pick the right option so that you don't inadvertently put yourself into a box that's going to cause delays and problems. So you want to work with someone who understands all the different choices, because there are a lot of choices when it comes to your legal compliance strategy for fundraising. And you want someone that can help you pick the best one for you. So those are the 3 main reasons why you definitely want to work with a lawyer before raising money. There are some people out there saying that you don't need to do that you can just use off-the-shelf documents, that you can, have someone else fill out the forms, or maybe you don't even need to file the forms and it's all very standardized. And I just think that when you're dealing with something as important as your business, that you want to be successful, you want to always be doing things in the way that is going to be most in alignment with your goals and values and mission. It's really, really worth it to work with someone who knows what they're doing very early in the process. And that way you can make sure, in fact, maybe even before you form your entity, so you can have someone help you choose an entity. Should I be a public benefit corp? Should I form in Delaware? Should I form in California? Should I form in Nevada? What are the tax benefits of all those choices? What are the risks? How will investors look at different structures? So, the earlier the better that you talk to someone who really knows what they're doing when it comes to structuring your business and getting it funded. You will be, it's a definitely dollars well spent. It's, as they say, you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish because there are people who end up having to spend quite a lot of money getting out of messes they made by either working with lawyers that didn't know what they were doing or not working with a lawyer at all. So one thing I did, because the more knowledge you have in this area, the better. If you can walk into a lawyer's office already knowing a lot of the basic legal issues, you're going to be in such a better position to choose a lawyer that is the right fit for you and, ask them really good questions. So in my book, I have 2 chapters that really go deep into the legal issues. So they go into different choices of entity, different types of investments you can offer. If you buy the book, you do get access to a website that has some examples of terms for different types of investments. And then there's another chapter on the compliance piece and all the options there. So if you want to get started, some people don't even want to know, they just want to hire someone to help them and they don't want to learn all the details, and that's totally fine. But if you want to be armed with that information when you're choosing a lawyer, definitely read my book, steps 3 and 4 in my book. And that book is called Raise Capital on Your Own Terms. And you can actually download the first two chapters for free on my website at jennykassan.com/raisecapitalbook. And I will share that link in the comment section. So that's all I wanted to share today. I would love to get your ideas about things you want to learn more about. Anything you want to hear about in terms of legal issues surrounding raising money for your business, different types of investments that you can offer to investors, how to find investors, what to say to investors, what are the different types of investments, anything like that, please, please, please feel free to share in the comments what you want to hear about. I'll be here again next week. I try to be here every week sharing about all the different pieces of the puzzle of raising funding for your business. And if you have things you want me to talk about, just let me know and I promise I will address your questions. So have a great rest of your day and I will see you next week. Goodbye.